Hello everyone and welcome to another video. How is everyone doing? For today's video we are facing the one and only, the most fake champion that pretends to be ranged, but is actually a melee champion. We are talking about Graves. The main issue is that Graves is made to hunt bears and sadly we are one. Also, like any broken champion in the game, he has tankiness, lots of damage, and very decent mobility. I wanted to help our top laner because we are playing against Fiddlesticks top, and I decided to start by counter-jungling this game. The funny thing is that he won the 1 versus 1, so instead of going back, I waited a little bit for the enemy jungler since I took his camps. This gives our top laner enough room to establish his dominance. Now the main talk. How do you play the early game against Graves? This champion got everything to counter hard on close quarter fighters. This graph shows that you win only at the start of the game and at the end of the game, meaning this matchup is totally in favor of Graves. That is why being patient and playing around your team is the best solution in this situation. Another aspect about dueling Graves: he can't hit you if you hide behind waves or minions, and if we make one mistake, it is hard to recover in the duel since he does a lot of damage even with little items. Now, since we know the top side is winning, we should help other lanes. But the sad truth is that with Volibear against Graves, you need to play a faster-paced game. If you let Graves gank freely, he will snowball much faster than you. So, the strategy with Graves is to gank a little bit more than farming. But most importantly, you should have your ultimate either before him or at the same time. There was a question posted about AD Volibear versus AP Volibear, and it's not that simple to answer. To give a clearer perspective, let's consider the impact of your first item on Volibear if you go AD or AP. As you can see, win rate over the course of the game is significantly affected. This graph shows that regardless of what you build after Cosmic Drive, your win rate remains consistent throughout the game. However, if you rush AD on Volibear and the game drags on, you're likely to struggle no matter what you build afterward. In my opinion, this choice comes down to playstyle. On average, it only provides a general tendency rather than a decisive outcome, and really only matters for newer players without prior experience. Personally, I prefer an AP rush on Volibear, and might add some AD items later, like Hullbreaker or similar. I would also consider AD Volibear first item, but only in games with squishy, high-mobility opponents, where you won't have the chance to stack your passive and will rely on small burst damage instead. Lately as Volibear, I am starting to have a lot of AP carries in the bot side. I feel that this is not syncing well with Volibear jungle, because AP bot side are a slow starter in the game. Usually if I gank bot side second after top side and my bot didn't blow their summoners, that they are lacking in everything. Now, in this specific game, Lux and Soraka are not useless, they are just dead weight. Soraka is helpful by default, but our damage is somewhat weird in this game. So, the talk about having a fast-paced game is now just a dream, and our strength will only show up in the mid-game, hopefully. Regarding the Grubs skirmish, here's a tip. Against champions that are hard to handle, let them start objectives. The idea is that when Graves starts an objective, he'll likely waste his main spells. Graves is somewhat of a caster. He isn't an auto-attack champion in the usual sense, as he casts his auto-attacks and abilities. If you manage to dodge his smokescreen and engage him after he's used his Q or his 2 shells, he'll be vulnerable until his cooldowns are up. Also, Graves players tend to fight around walls so that they are sure to either dash out of bad fights. The good part is that they don't have unlimited mobility. Also, the bear against Graves. It's your typical story of a bear during hunting season. A bear is very vulnerable, while the hunter is immune to everything except direct attacks, especially gunshots from barrels or shotguns. This aspect is one of Riot's old Team Good Concepts design, because there are fun hard matchups and frustrating hard matchups, and Graves is one of those fun, challenging matchups. You'll enjoy the game and learn a lot about Volibear. Regarding our second and third items, it might seem a bit unusual, but against Graves, you need a bit of everything. Mobility is key, and ideally, you should include Frozen Gauntlet somewhere in the build. However, go with whatever feels most comfortable. There's also a variation with Dead Man's Plate and Trinity Force or Sunderer, but I prefer Cosmic Drive and Frozen Gauntlet. The surprising thing about this game is that Graves can be played in so many ways, similar to Volibear. You can go Bruiser Graves, Lethality Graves, or Lifesteal Graves, making him a flexible, semi-frontliner. He's like a hybrid champion that deals mid-range while having stacking resistances with each dash. Against our composition, I think we'll be playing around our mid laner because our top lane is winning solo. Bot side is somewhat irrelevant, and mid lane is playing out of his mind. Since Graves will likely do the same and stick with Aurora or Fiddlesticks, we can expect to find him around every corner, which means most of the fights in this game will be skirmishes rather than duels. For the mid-game and synergy with our teammates, I don't feel there's much synergy happening. and the same goes for the enemy team, except for one key point. Their composition deals more damage, while ours is focused on DPS and sustain. I think around a Drake fight we could block their path and survive through the damage, but with Fiddlesticks in play, that's not an ideal choice. This game will largely come down to positioning. If Graves had gotten ahead, the game would likely have been over minutes ago. Thankfully, Swain's rework is proving strong, and after that quadra kill, I believe the game is in our favor. At this stage, the Volibear versus Graves matchup is no longer the main focus. It's more of a team difference discussion. Now for the Herald power play. I'm still figuring out how to manage this babe around tight corners. We only secured it because Graves couldn't properly contest it with his team. Soloing the Herald takes a lot of time, and as a jungler, doing it alone can set you back significantly. At least one level of experience and a good amount of gold. Now we are reaching the Baron fight. Of course, I'm not the tankiest champion at this stage, and we're a little behind because we are ahead as a team, not as individuals, but that doesn't mean we can't engage and start fights. The main objective with this setup is that if we manage to kill Graves, the enemy team won't have much to work with. They lack a true frontliner. If Graves doesn't build tanky, they're left with only Fiddlesticks, who needs the element of surprise to function as a sub-frontliner instead of having a bruiser or a tank to absorb the heat of the battle. In the late game, most calls will be centered around our Swain, and it seems even the enemy jungler has picked up on this, avoiding duels around objectives or high-danger areas. This is good for us because in my past games against Graves, the early game was tough. He deals a lot of damage, and as Volibear, running at him often leads to taking his full damage and dying in the process. Regarding the last item, whenever the game feels like it's going smoothly in our favor, I go for Hullbreaker for two main reasons. First, it's a sleeper hidden gem. It gives Volibear great stats since the item itself is highly gold efficient. Second, if you manage to get the Baron buff and stand next to the cannon minion, the damage output is insane and from a huge range. This way, you're being strongly aggressive just by positioning with the buffed Baron wave. Now, of course, thanks to Soraka, this game was much smoother than it should have been. We managed to secure Baron and survive through the enemy team's damage most of the time, largely thanks to Soraka's ultimate. At this stage, you can sense the desperation in the enemy team, with them making frantic plays, and the most awkward part is that we didn't make any huge moves to put them on high alert. Watching them run toward a bear with a stick instead of a shotgun feels somewhat disrespectful. We made this play look easy, and you might think it was all because of Soraka, but honestly, I think I would have won the 1 versus 2 either way. So, my dear viewers, this is the last play of the game as always. If you have any questions about this matchup, let me know in the comments. Until the next one, take care and peace.